Hey there, spooky friends, and welcome to a new episode. Well, new to us. Maybe new to the first-time listeners. Not new if you're listening to the second time, but episode of Scaryish.
Woo!
I'm Robin Grace. This is Adam Diaz.
Hello.
And today we're back with more topics. Yours are supposed to be interestingly funny, right?
I hope so. I really enjoyed doing mine. This week, I'm going to be covering famous hoaxes. Robin, what are you going to be covering this week?
I'm going to be covering the Roopkund Lake.
I've never heard of this, so I'm excited.
I've never heard of it until I researched it either. So
right on. This is going to be good.
New.
I hope you folks like my topic. I'm really excited about doing it. Before I go ahead and jump into it, I just want to say that some folks do show up and watch us when we record Storytime episodes or Pasta Time episodes live. We do that on Wednesdays at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Time. We do it on our Twitch channel and on our YouTube. So either one, if you guys want to come and check it out, you can go to twitch.tv/Scaryish podcast or youtube.com/Scaryish. I'm bringing it up because during the live shows, there's a lot more to it than when you hear a pasta time or a story time. Mainly mistakes and chit chats that we do with the wonderful folks who have joined us. And occasionally we'll put goals on our streams. Like if you've ever watched someone that streamed, they'll have some sort of a ticker or something like that of people who have followed or subscribed or donated. One of the things that we do for live episodes is we put a donation goal occasionally. And this month we put up a donation goal where if we reached a certain amount, we would do a live topic episode, which we have never once done before in over 3 years of doing the show, which would mean that we would go live at a specific date and record a topic episode while you folks showed up and watched, similar to how we record Storytime. So we hit the goal. We hit it actually really quickly. So thank you to everyone who watches us live and to everyone who donated. So if anyone is interested in seeing that, we are going to record a live topic episode Sunday, March 28th at 1 p.m. Pacific time. So Sunday, March 28th at 1 p.m. Pacific time. So this means we're going to have to be proactive in next week's topic and not record Monday night super late, which will be very interesting. And then we're going to have to record it in the daylight hours, which will be crazy. And we're also going to have to stream it. So it's going to be a lot of new things for us, and it'll hopefully be fun. And you'll see just how much of a shit show recording one of these episodes really is, which should be interesting. But we'll see what happens. So that said, let's go ahead and move into the topics, and I am going first. And this week, I really wanted to cover some bullshit. Not really. My first instinct was actually to cover something supernatural, but some of the things that I actually looked at turned out to be hoaxes. There's a lot of times where I look at things and I'm like, this is fake, or this is very dubious of nature, and there's no evidence backing it up whatsoever, and the person later changed their story. I actually have one topic on our Scaryish topic doc that's marked as fake, just so I can go over that it is fake and how much it bugged me, because when it first came out, everyone thought it to be authentic, and I'm like, I will cover that in depth and rip it apart at some point. So when I saw that one today, it kind of clicked. Like, I want to cover some stuff that are famous hoaxes that are sort of fun to go over, and I really started to get excited about it. So without further introduction, my dear spooky friends, I present to you Famous Hoaxes 1. Because there's so many out there, I assuredly will be able to do this again.
All right.
Also, I had a typo on my script, and it says, without further introduction, my dead spooky friends.
Oh my God.
Which is weird, but if there's any ghosts listening out there, this one's for you. Because I accidentally typed that. So we're going to cover some stuff from the past that have been found out to be hoaxes or have been admitted to be hoaxes by the creator.
Are crop circles one of them? We already did an episode on the crop circle hoax.
Crop circles are not on here. So I cannot be held personally responsible if this episode happens to shatter the illusion for anything you may currently believe. You may currently think it's dubious and haven't admitted to yourself that it's fake yet. I sincerely doubt any of these things are going to cause a stir. They're mainly just hilarious in a way that people believe these in the first place.
Adam's been sending me pictures all night from his topics, and I'm just so confused as to what any of them mean because they make no sense whatsoever.
Our Facebook chat on Messenger will send pictures that are going to be posted to the Facebook and the Instagram back and forth. That way they can like live in the cloud and I can go on my phone and we send them on our PCs. So yeah, when you send stuff without any context, it gets a little bit ridiculous, especially when so much of this stuff is ridiculously fake. So let's start off with a fairly contemporary hoax. Not exactly in current day and age, but something that's contemporary enough where I 100% remember it, and I'm sure some of you will as well. there is a YouTube channel out there called Household Hacker. I don't know if anyone has ever heard of Household Hacker.
I've never heard of that.
As I think 2010 or 2011, it was the 22nd most popular YouTube channel.
No way.
Yeah, it was. It's not anymore.
Oh, why?
Because just some channels have grown much, much larger than this one. So it's very old. Like the description of the channel is as follows. At Household Hacker, we solve your common everyday problems and create things utilizing items you find around your house. You might say we try to bring out the MacGyver in all of us. From kitchen hacks and tricks to getting rid of ants, we do it all. Very specific on getting rid of ants instead of just insects. But hey, that's the description of the channel. The channel actually was originally created on November 5th, 2007. So definitely very old.
That was the year I graduated high school.
Holy shit. I was still in college on November 7th or November 5th, 2007. YouTube didn't start up until like 2005. So this channel was one of the pioneers around that time. Some of the early videos were stuff like
Will It Blend?
What?
I remember Will It Blend, like on YouTube.
Oh, you just stuff something in a blender?
Yeah. Well, it was like this company that had blenders, and they literally just shoved anything into a blender and would just be like, well, will it blend? And usually, yes, it will.
They still have stuff like that. I mean, I'm not saying they as in that specific channel, but there are people that have like the hydraulic press crushing stuff. Fucking love it.
Or hot nickel ball.
The hot nickel ball one is awesome.
Man,
I
so
love
satisfying.
that channel. Shout out to those people. They're fucking geniuses. As far as Household Hacker goes, some of the early videos they created were very low production value, but also kind of interesting. Something like how to cook a turkey with a light bulb and DVD-Rs, which are the DVDs you could record on for those of you who are too young to know that.
Yeah.
A video like how to improve your Xbox 360 Wi-Fi, which I didn't watch, but I saw aluminum foil and I was like, bullshit. How to create a high-def speaker for under $1, which was the first video they ever published. And a video called How to Charge an iPod Using Electrolytes and an Onion.
Can't you do that with a potato?
Here's the thing. It all sorts out in the same, vein of, is this real or not? So This one specifically is using electrolytes and an onion. And I sincerely remember when this video came out because I remember everyone talking about Gatorade or Powerade and an onion. And then eventually the potato one came along. But this one specifically was the inspiration for that. And when this one came out, everyone was fucking talking about whether or not it worked and how they had a friend's cousin's uncle who worked for Apple and claimed that it was 100% true. And it reminded me of being a kid and having my neighbor talk about his friend's cousin's dad that actually beat Mike Tyson and Mike Tyson's Punch Out. And I was like, no, he didn't. You're a fucking liar. No one beats Mike Tyson. That game was super hard, by the way. I recently watched a YouTube video of some guy beating it in world record time, and it's fucking nuts.
Don't they just glitch it or something?
No. They just know the patterns. You can always, there's always a certain thing you can do to all the fighters that'll knock them out. So this video went viral when it was released, which was super beneficial for Household Hacker's YouTube channel, considering it was their second video ever made. So in 12 months' time, it had been viewed 7 million times.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, and what's really interesting is that it went viral before the phrase going viral existed. That didn't start until 2009, according to the internet.
Shut up.
And going viral was a phrase that was originally created for the video David After Dentist, which is a video apparently about a father drugging his 7-year-old son and recording his reaction.
You know what that video is.
Never seen it. I don't know.
Shut up.
It's a joke.
Okay.
I've obviously seen it, but that is an accurate description of it. So the video is using Gatorade or Powerade, I forget which, and a white onion in particular. I'm pretty sure you stab the onion with a screwdriver and then you soak it in the liquid for I can't remember how long. And then essentially you just set your onion on a shot glass so it's propped up, and you jam your USB connector into the onion, and then you put the other spot into your iPod.
There's no way.
And it shows it charging. And the video is also hilarious because one, it's got super low production quality to it. And two, the iPod being used is so old, it totally dates the video. It's not even an iPod Touch. It's the iPod with the circle in the middle for navigating the menu.
Oh, okay.
So one of the really, really old ones. And I just watched it and I was like, holy shit, this is only 2007 and it feels like this is from a different millennia.
There was a video that I watched recently. I think you watched it too, where someone pretended to tint their windows with maple syrup or something.
A bunch of bullshit. It was maple syrup, ketchup, and one other thing.
I was what? No.
People just like to fuck with people on the internet, and that's always been the case, as apparent by this particular video. So something that everyone soon noticed when they tried this out was that it did not work. folks posted, especially on the video, saying that the video was full of shit, filled with lies. And there were other people that actually posted stating that it would work if you did it properly. They must have fucked up the sequence somehow. Those people are what are known as liars because it's total bullshit.
But didn't you do the science experiment in school? There's a science experiment, right? Where you could light a light bulb with a potato?
That's completely different. We're talking about completely different things. An onion and potato are not the same thing. So, ABC News actually picked up the story and tried it on air, and it also failed. And it got popular enough that this was actually tested on Mythbusters in 2008.
Oh my, shut
Not
up.
bullshitting
What's
you.
What's funny is we've been talking about Mythbusters all night.
I love Mythbusters.
Yep.
So I saw that. I was like, I really want to watch it, but it's on Discovery Plus, and I'm not signing up for another streaming service. Grant Imahara, the late, great Grant Imahara, performed the experiment exactly how it was supposed to work, while also telling everyone the science behind why it would never work in a million years. And of course, it was classified as busted because it absolutely 100% did not work.
Right.
Funny enough, later on, ABC News actually interviewed Adam Savage and asked him about this specific thing that they tested. And his assessment was that the video was, and this is a real quote, complete horseshit.
I can totally hear him saying
I
that.
can too,
though,
and I
100%.
absolutely love it. Side note, the high-def speaker for Under a Buck, their first video ever, actually also made it onto Mythbusters, and they tested that out. I think that was Tori, the white dude who had like the chin strap or not the chin strap, the soul patch.
Yeah, I think that
was Tori. Right. He also busted that one. The speaker that you make, one, doesn't work at all. And one of the components, and there's many components into constructing it, costs more than $1 on its own, meaning that you can't construct this thing for under $1.
Wow.
And it also doesn't work. So that's the first one I wanted to cover because I remember back on that one, I was like, man, that also seemed like horseshit. So it was perfect. So let's cover one that's less contemporary. This one dates back to 1770, so it actually predates the United States. A man named Wolfgang von Kempelen created something to impress Empress Maria Theresa of Austria.
All these names sound so fancy.
I know, right? So what did he make? An automaton, of course. What's an automaton? It's a self-operating machine, basically.
Butter-serving robot?
Yeah, exactly. This automaton was called the Mechanical Turk, or otherwise known as the automaton chess player. Yes, Wolfgang made a machine he claimed to be an automaton that played chess. Not just played chess, but played chess incredibly well.
Okay, is this just some dude in like a robot suit?
So, let me keep going. It was a life-size model, although it's very difficult to determine exactly what the model was made out of because it doesn't exist anymore. That was dressed in Ottoman robes and a turban. So it 100% looks like a robot. It's life-size, and I shouldn't say a robot, like a person, but it's clearly like fake. You know what I mean? It's the same size as a person would be, but it's seated at a cabinet that was 3 feet long, 2 feet wide, and 2.5 feet high. And on top of the cabinet was a chessboard. There were drawers on the side of it when opened that would reveal cogs and clockwork, very similar to how an actual clock or a grandfather clock would function, that were very impressive and seemed very, very complicated. Another drawer on the side of the cabinet held the chess pieces, a red and white ivory set.
And you have to think about that this is the 1700s.
1770. This is a long time ago.
There's not really all the fancy tech that we have now.
I still think that watchmakers and clockmakers are wizards and demons because it's just so crazy the level of precision and the devices that they're creating. I can't even understand how they work. So I can't imagine in 1770 opening up a cabinet and being like, yep, it's real. That's an automaton, all right? But I'd probably be bought into this one too. The automaton played many people in its day, winning almost every single match, only losing to the best of chess players in the world. Some of the notable folks that the Turk defeated include, this is true, Napoleon Bonaparte and Benjamin Franklin.
Wow.
So they both played the Turk and lost. The Turk was, of course, complete horseshit, to quote Adam Savage. The cabinet was built beneath, and it was brilliant. It was classic misdirection, as if you were making something that was a magician's trick. All the angles that you could look into it would show you all this componentry that made it look complicated and scientific, and it appeared as if you could see all the way to the other side of the machine.
Because there was a mirror in there?
I don't know if it was mirrors. It actually stated that there were no mirrors used inside it, but all the angles that you could peer into would show you the other side of the box, which is genius because the cabinet's primary design feature contained a red cushion and spots to place many of the parts that were inside the box, and basically it could be disassembled as much as needed be from the inside because there would be a chess champion hidden inside the cabinet that would manipulate the model that would move this automaton around from the inside so that it could move chess pieces on the chessboard.
But it's 2x3. It's small.
It's very small.
How does someone fit in there?
I mean, you just sit in it. You're cramped as fuck.
I can't. There's no way I'm going to fit in a 2x3 box.
I mean, they must have found small chess champions, but they found chess champions to fit inside this thing. It was also dark inside, so a candle was included inside that burned into a tube that would ventilate into the turbine of the model, which is just genius.
Because it makes it look like a robot just chucking away.
Well, it's like you can't actually see smoke coming off of it because it just collects in the turbine because it's only a single candle so that they could see. And another thing is they apparently would put a candelabra on the cabinet sometimes so that people could like have this fancy sort of environment when they were playing this automaton.
Okay.
And the candelabra would be what was accounted for the candle smell. So people were like,
Wow.
oh yeah, I have nothing to suspect the candle smell for. So it's kind of fucking genius and I absolutely love it. So its creator died in 1804. So its creator died around 34 years after it was created and it changed hands a few times after that. It was still very popular and it did keep its secrets for another 50 years, almost a full 100 years before it was eventually donated to the Chinese Museum of Charles Wilson Peel. The museum wound up burning down on July 5th, 1854, taking the Turk along with it.
Oh, no.
That's why we don't know exactly what it was made out of anymore. After its destruction, some of the former operators came forward to reveal the secrets and let people know, essentially, y'all are kind of fucking dumb. Like, it was very obviously a forgery. Everyone just really wanted to believe it so much. They even had diagrams that they had drawn out of the machine so they would know exactly how to operate it. And one of them came forward and stated it was very dark inside. Here's how we took care of having a candle in it and let everyone know, like, here's some of the generations of champions that used to hang out in it. And it was just this inside joke of chess champions that all knew that they could just fuck with other people, basically. And it's really awesome. And the story of the Turk would go on to be adapted into a Netflix show called The Queen's Gambit. I think. I've never seen the show.
Stupid.
I heard there's chess involved, so I'm sure that's what it is.
God.
So moving on. This one kind of picks up where the last one left off chronologically, except it's 1868. This one starts with a man named George Hull in an argument. He went out to a Methodist revival meeting, which is odd since George Hull was an atheist. Kind of sounds like he's just there to stir up trouble. The argument was about, of course, the Bible. In particular, the interpretation of Genesis 6:4 specifically. Genesis 6:4 states, quote, "The Nephilim were in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bore child to them. The same were the mighty men that were of old, the men of renown." So, very much debatable about what this represents. We're not here to debate that. The argument here was between two people in 1868. Nephilim, the word itself, is kind of what is the crux of the debate. I'm familiar with the word Nephilim from pop culture and video games.
It's like half angel, half human.
That's what I've always interpreted it as. That's like video games for me. That's supernatural shit. The word has loosely been translated in other versions of the Bible to mean giants. Nephilim was translated to giants in some ways. And that's what the argument was about. Whether or not giants existed. And not shocking, George Hull did not believe they existed. And after the argument, he was so annoyed with how much this person told him he was wrong, he decided that he was going to prank this guy. And he literally went out and hired masons to cut a 10-foot tall block of gypsum. And when he was asked, "What do you need this huge block of gypsum for?" he replied, quote, "A monument to Abraham Lincoln, who had been assassinated, I think, 4 years prior." That was all anyone needed to hear. They were on board. He got his 10-foot tall block of gypsum, did some carving, and then transported what he had created to his cousin William Newell's farm, where they buried it. A year later, on October 16th, 1869,
oh God, did he find it?
William Newell hired some men to dig a well on his property in a very, very specific location. And shocker, they started digging, and they found something. And people freaked out. And townsfolk came to check out what all the commotion was about, and eventually word started to spread. Someone had found what appeared to be a giant petrified man. The idea of a petrified man had been circulating because like 4 years earlier in San Francisco, someone wrote in that an excavator had found some weird geode, which is like a very shiny rock with crystals in it, that had a liquid in the center of it. And that excavator drank it and became petrified. And that idea spread.
God.
So people had heard about that.
That's a hoax in and of itself.
I didn't look up that one because I was like, that one's clearly true. But people were just like, petrified man, I've heard of that. And they heard it was huge. They're like, it was a giant who became petrified. I need to go check this out. So they came over to the farm, and it's not shocking that everyone wanted to get a look. William Newell put a tent over the site just to make sure it wouldn't rain or anything like that, and began charging folks $0.25 to look. No joke, 100% real. He charged everyone $0.25 just to come to his backyard and look at this petrified giant. FYI, $0.25 in 1869 is worth around $5 today. So It's like $5 to look, and people were like, sure. So the next day, after people started showing up, he doubled the price to 50 cents, which is around $10, obviously. And after that, people kept coming literally by the wagon load. People were just jumping off with $5 in hand, where I've been raised to believe that if you showed a dollar bill, people took their hat off for it. I mean, raised, whatever. A Million Ways to Die in the West is the same thing.
Those are some fucking Disneyland prices, like just jacking that shit up.
It's crazy. And immediately, though, some of the rational folks came and looked at it and called it a hoax. Like archaeologists came to check it out and saw the way it was carved and the type of stone it was, and immediately quoted Adam Savage and said, total bullshit. Geologists came to check it out as well and notified not only what kind of rock it was, but that the area selected for the well made no sense because of the water table. Like, you just wouldn't put a well there.
Yeah.
It was like, it just seemed like they chose that spot to dig specifically so it would be discovered.
Yeah.
So some folks wanted to believe it, though. A geologist that came and checked it out posited that it was a statue carved by someone hundreds of years ago to impress Native Americans when the first settlers had arrived. Some folks, local and not local, defended it, however, as an authentic Nephilim. They 100% believed this is proof we were right.
So, the thing that my mind is thinking about right now is people thought, or how the Bible puts it, is that Nephilim are giants.
Correct.
And then in Greek or Roman gods and stuff like that, they have like titans and stuff like that as giants. So what if those things are freaking real?
Titans are so much different than giants, though, because I'm pretty sure giants were represented as like 10 feet tall, and titans were supposed to be like thousands of feet tall.
Okay, what about their kids?
I don't know. I don't know about the titans' kids. You're twisting this so far to make it so that the Nephilim are the kids of the Titans?
What if these things actually freaking existed? And that's what Bigfoots are. JK, LOL.
Wow,
but
I hate you so much.
No, what if giants are actually a thing? Like,
one
way
of the
back
hoaxes
in the day?
I read was about an animal that was completely made up, and it was supposed to be a very obvious hoax. And they put stuff out there about how they were hunted to extinction by the Sasquatch.
Oh my God.
And people didn't pick up on that, and they still insist that this is real, even though the guy who created the article came out and was like, I made it fake. I put a bunch of stuff in there to tell you it's fake. No one picked up on any of it.
What's funny is that I just earlier, while I was doing research, I came across this article that kept coming up that was like, giants, evidence of giants in like XYZ country. I was like, oh my God. But
they're everywhere.
They're everywhere. No, but yeah, continue. I just thought it was like, what if they're real?
Thank you for sharing that conspiracy theory with us. So there's no word in any of the things that I read whether or not the person George Hull originally argued with was among the defenders of it as a Nephilim. They sincerely believed it to be the real thing, though, a lot of places, and the story did spread because of this, and it spread so much that it wasn't long, like literally months, maybe a couple months at most, before 5 men showed up at the farm, led by a man named David Hannum. And when they showed up, they said, we would like to buy the giant. And William Newell said, how much? To which they replied, $23,000. And I'm not sure how long he took to say sold, but he did sell it. FYI, $23,000 in 1869 is $444,803 today.
Wow.
So $444,803. Sorry. That is a house. That's a nice fucking house, too. Unless it's like in LA, in which case that's a shack. But that's a nice fucking shack. So the argument and the prank really paid off, literally. And Hull waited until December 10th, 1869, so less than 2 months after the hoax started, to confess everything to the press. in the newspapers when they asked him if it was real. He was basically like, no, it's not real, you idiots. Well, we made a lot of fucking money off of it. Dollar bills, y'all. Dirty Monty 1869. And interesting postscript to this story, David Hannum took the stone giant after he bought it to Syracuse, New York, and charged admission at an exhibition to see it. And someone who came to see it in Syracuse was a man named P.T. Barnum. He offered...
Shut up.
This is 100% true.
Shut up.
He offered the group $50,000 for it, already double their money, and they told him no.
Ugh.
They're like, no, we're making money hand over fist on this thing, get fucked. So P.T. Barnum hired a man, this is true, this is 100% true,
one too?
to model the giant's shape in wax covertly, somehow, like sneak into the museum, take the shape in wax, which this guy did successfully. And then P.T. Barnum created a plaster replica and began to display it in New York City. And when he displayed it, he claimed his was the real one and the stone giant was the fake giant.
What an asshole.
The quote, fake giant, which is going to come back because it's important. And this is so fucking funny. David Hannum was asked about P.T. Barnum's plaster giant by the newspapers. And when responding to a question of why people would go to see P.T. Barnum's if his was fake, he stated, and I quote, "There's a sucker born every minute."
Oh,
that is, by the way, 100% where that phrase came from, which is still spoken today. But P.T. Barnum's PR was so goddamn good that when the phrase wound up becoming famous, somehow he wound up getting the credit for saying it, even though it was said about him lying through his teeth. People to this day still improperly credit him as the one who said it. Just Google it. Like, it's on the internet now as having been spoken by P.T. Barnum. Eventually, this whole thing wound up in court. Hannum actually sued Barnum for calling his statue the fake statue.
Can't they just, like, carbon date it?
So they basically brought all these people in. Carbon dating was definitely not a thing in 1870, which is when this trial took place. But the evidence in the trial showed, and it was ruled that both statues were fake. Especially since the original statue, the real statue, had already been confessed to be a fake. And the guy that sold it was like, yeah, it's totally fucking fake. And they still apparently got to keep the money because I can't find anything about them paying the money back because the statue had already generated so much revenue from it. Final side note, the defamation lawsuit against P.T. Barnum was thrown out because his calling the stone giant the, quote, fake giant was technically true because it was a fake giant. Had the other guy not confessed that it was fake, P.T. Barnum would have had to pay an ass load of money out.
Wow.
So, very interesting. After being admitted to being fake and determined to be fake in court, people still believed they were truly Nephilim and still paid money to go see both the plaster one and the stone giant.
Wow.
So my last hoax for this episode, and I gotta say, I'll admit, I almost didn't include it because it's so short, but I think it's perfect timing here, is just so good. And I just want to let you folks know this is not a joke. This actually happened. If you're from the UK, you might have heard of this one before. I had personally never heard of it. But on April 1st, 1957, the BBC aired a 3-minute segment covering a family in Switzerland harvesting spaghetti from the family's, quote, spaghetti tree. You heard me. A spaghetti tree.
Okay.
It was the type of fluff piece you'd see for any small business that you wanted to bring attention to, and the video literally showed ladies pulling strands of spaghetti, which must have been wet because they had give to them. I watched the video. It's still on YouTube. Off a bunch of foliage. It actually looks like bushes and not even a tree.
April Fool's Day.
Obviously. And the BBC underestimated just how many people, one, did not know where spaghetti came from. And two, weren't paying attention to the date.
Shut up.
In fairness, man, back in like 1957, it was kind of a delicacy to have. It wasn't very common in the UK. So there were quite a few folks who didn't know how it was made.
This episode should have been saved for like next week.
For April Fool's Day?
Yeah.
I think for April Fool's Day, I'll just do a bunch of April Fool's Day jokes rather than hoaxes. But anyways, it was literally inspired by a cameraman named Charles de Jager, who stated his teachers in Austria growing up would tease kids when they did unintelligent things by telling them they were so dumb that they probably believed spaghetti grew on trees. So they made a 3-minute segment of it. They convinced Richard Dimbleby, who was a respected broadcaster of the time, to do the voiceover for this prank or joke.
Did he have like a serious voice?
He had a serious voice, but he was very well respected too.
Okay.
So it's estimated that 8 million people watched the program, And the next day, the studio was flooded with hundreds, if not thousands, of calls asking to either validate the authenticity of the story, where people were like, that seems suspicious to me, or people that were legitimately asking for more information on how one would cultivate a spaghetti tree.
Just stick a couple strands in the ground, water, and see what happens.
The BBC, being the glorious fucking bastards they are, just leaned so far into the prank, they told all callers asking how to grow a spaghetti tree that they could just, quote, place a sprig of spaghetti in a tin of tomato sauce and hope for the best, end quote. It's 100% true. They just kept the troll going. And you know that there are families in the UK that literally cracked open a can of spaghetti sauce, popped in a piece of spaghetti, and waited and waited and waited to see what would happen.
No, fracking
It's
way.
so funny. I saw another
way.
news organization that claimed that it was the best hoax ever perpetrated by a legitimate news organization.
Oh my God.
And it was completely unintentional. It was just supposed to be a 3-minute funny segment. If there is anything we have learned from these examples of hoaxes throughout history, it is that people, 1, like to lie.
People are stupid.
And 2, people are fucking stupid. And that is a very dangerous combination. And that, my spooky friends, is the topic known as Famous Hoaxes 1.
Cool. Thanks.
No problem.
Nice.
So, kind of regretting not saving it for April Fool's Day now, but oops, fuck that one up. Forgot that April Fool's Day was a thing. So, all right, before we move into Robin's topic, we're going to take a quick commercial break.
Welcome to the other side of the episode. If episodes have sides, I know they have a beginning and an end. I don't know.
I'd like to say hello from the other side.
Oh, hello. That's us. We're from the other side. Or the other.
I just want to quote Adele. That's all.
Okay.
You can keep going with it if you want.
All right. So this week I'm going for the ish and Scaryish. I guess kind of like Adam did this week. I thought yours were absolutely hilarious. Mine is actually more morbidly interesting, if anything. This one takes us deep into the Himalayan mountains, about a 4 to 5 day trek from the nearest village, 5,029 meters above sea level.
Dear God.
That is 16,500 feet above sea level. It's a heck of a lot of feet. I have 2 of them. Imagine.
I hate you so much. I was waiting. I was like, she's going to make a foot joke now.
All right. So this one is called Roopkund Lake.
How did you make a foot joke and not do a Bigfoot joke, since this is where the Yeti
I already
lives?
said something about Bigfoot earlier in your topic.
I'm just shocked it wasn't in your script.
So this lake is often referred to as Skeleton Lake and is home to a mysterious and creepy sight. Hard to believe, because I imagine these mountains to be completely frozen over for most of the year, but there is a small body of water nestled in there somewhere. It's about 40 meters in diameter, so it's really small. It's not super huge.
It's like a pond almost.
I mean, 120 feet. It's about 120 feet, right? 40 times 3.
I would classify that as a pond in my brain.
Is it? Well, I guess ponds from where you are back home, people have those in their backyards, and I can kind of see it being that big.
There's a pond that was like 2 miles behind where I grew up. I used to walk to it like once a week, and it was smaller than this. I'm sorry, it was bigger than this.
Really?
So, oh, yeah, 100%.
And you guys called it a pond?
Yeah, 100% called it a pond.
All right.
I don't know. I would never call it a lake. Just because I grew up by Lake Michigan, so a lake to me was that big. And then there was this like fucking maybe 300-400 feet wide like body of water that was maybe 10 feet deep at its deepest.
All right.
So that's what it was for me.
Okay. I see where you're coming from. Gotcha.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so this is fuck you. So this is a really small body of water, and you'd be right to think that it's frozen much of the time, but in summer, the sun do what the sun do. It melts all the ice around the area and lets you see what the snow hides the rest of the year.
It's like in the Midwest when it finally warms up.
And see all your dog shit.
My friend just talked about this. It warmed up like a little bit in the middle of March, and they were like, "Wow, it's a lot of dog shit," and they spent all day picking it up.
Lying there around the lake are the skulls and bones of between 300 and 800 ancient humans, as well as what is assumedly their horses. The first written report of the existence of these skeletons dates back to 1898. Whether or not the knowledge of them occurred before then isn't exactly known. It probably was, but it wasn't written down. It's probably
wasn't
word
recorded.
of mouth
It was just spoken.
In 1942, amidst World War II, a British forest ranger traveling through the area reported having seen bones and flesh through the melting ice. this caused fear to travel through a military group that were afraid. They were just afraid that they were going to be victims of a surprise attack or something, because this guy saw bodies in the middle of the mountains, you know? But these bodies weren't signs of any modern war. The freezing temperatures of the mountains and the clean, crisp air of that high altitude preserved the bodies. So much so that even the flesh was preserved.
Wow.
Because it's the same thing like when you climb to Mount Everest, right? You climb to Mount Everest, you're going to see these bodies on your way up there, and they're not rotted. It's too frozen. Those are ice cubes, popsicle people.
I don't know. I've never seen bodies when I climb to the peak of Mount Everest. Every time I go back, I never wind up running into any, so.
Shut up. You're so... God, I hate you. Okay. Anyway, these days the snow and ice does melt much more than it has in the past, which of course isn't a good thing for rotting flesh, because, you know, heat and meat don't necessarily mix unless you're cooking.
I think heat and meat sound like the best mixture I've heard in a long time.
Unless you're cooking it, in which case it's not so gross, but I highly doubt that there are bodies up there that are going to get cooked, which is a weird turn of events, a weird turn of topic. But anyway, ice melts. More is revealed. The growth and melt of the ice has caused some of these bones and bodies to be pushed into the actual body of water itself. So there's some outside, there's some inside, you know, bodies have been pushed around all over. In the 1950s, an explorer came across the site and described it to an Indian radio station as, quote, a ghastly scene that made us catch our breath, end quote. So it's just, I mean, imagine that many bodies, that many skeletons in one place.
I don't know what I would do if I saw that. I would definitely freak out, though. For me, the expression catch your breath, it translates to like grasp my pearls, like, like that's exactly what I would do.
Word.
My word.
I don't know why grasping your pearls or whatever is like, I don't know, that type of voice for me, but it is.
Oh, wait, it's clutching your pearls.
Clutching your pearls, that's what it is. Why those bones are there is the mystery here. They're not exactly sure why that many bodies are in one place. There actually has been little done as far as anthropological or archaeological study on the site. And it's because this site gets affected so often by rock slides, which are a natural occurrence in that area, and passersby that are there. And there's scarcely any artifacts, if any, left to study.
So it's like genuinely accepted amongst the scientific community as like, oh, it's just Bone Lake.
There's nothing they can do to actually figure out what happened there. Hikers and locals have manipulated the remains so much that it's impossible to learn anything about its original setting. And people have come there, have shown up there, stacked bones in certain ways, and they've moved them around. And it's both sad and creepy at the same time, because there are people out there that are like, human bones, I'll just move them and do stuff with them.
It's very macabre.
Yeah.
Or macabre, as one of our wonderful listeners would say.
But it's just really upsetting that there are people that do that. And
it's disrespectful.
It is very disrespectful, you know?
It makes me wonder if people are going up there to try and like cast spells or something like that in some form of necromancy by manipulating bones.
There's a lot of freaking bones up there.
There's a lot of weird freaking people that would do something that disrespectful.
So the creation of the lake has roots in folklore, of course. Like any story, there's some legend about it, right? There's a legend about the goddess Nanda Devi, or Devi. I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce it. She is the mountain goddess, and then it's a story of her and Lord Shiva, who you've probably heard about
Shiva
before.
Kamini Soma Kunda Krum.
Yeah.
I have heard of her.
I'm just thinking of Final Fantasy now, because there's
we went to completely different pop culture references.
Yeah. So they passed over this area after a successful bout with some demons. The goddess wanted to quench her thirst during their travels, so Shiva created a lake for her to drink from. And as the goddess leaned over the lake, she looked into the water and saw her reflection. This legend is the origin of the name Roopkund Lake, which literally means look or shape lake. So because she looked into it, that's where it got its name.
Okay.
Yeah. So despite the lack of solid scientific information, there are theories as to why these skeletons lay there. Of course, again, rooted in folklore, because why not? The legend describes a Rajat pilgrimage to a nearby shrine of that goddess. And this pilgrimage consisted of a king, a queen, and their many attendants. Supposedly, their actions were very inappropriate and rude while on this pilgrimage. And apparently dancing girls can be offensive in the presence of a goddess. So they were struck down by the goddess herself. And this pilgrimage is one where people went to the shrine of this mountain goddess. It's a pilgrimage held in the region every 12 years. So the enraged response from the goddess was supposedly to strike this group down with quote-unquote iron balls thrown from the sky. Some consider this to be a hailstorm that may have wiped them all out. So these iron balls are actually hail.
I was thinking like stones that were falling from the mountain almost. Maybe.
Oh, maybe. That could be possible too. There is supposedly a folk song about this legend. And it's obviously not going to be in English, so I was like, not even going to try it out of here.
You're not going to sing it for us?
Nope. Other theories include them being a group of merchants or military that were caught in an unexpected storm, or maybe even a group of Indian soldiers that were trying to invade Tibet in 1841 and were beaten back, forced to find their way home over the Himalayas, where they died on the way. So there's a lot of different theories. There's even a theory that they could be victims of an epidemic that is theorized by some in the science community. Now, I know I said that there wasn't a lot of research into the archaeological significance to the existence of these skeletons, but there were researchers that looked into who they may have been. The remains found have been analyzed as recently as the early 2000s, led in part by someone named Niraj Rai, an expert in ancient DNA at the Birbal Sahni Institute of Paleosciences in India, and a man named David Reich, a geneticist at Harvard University. So there's a lot of big name people trying to figure out who this huge body of bodies is.
Body of bodies.
They sampled for DNA, osteological analysis, dietary reconstruction, carbon dating, all that fun stuff. Then through this, they found that among the skeletons were 3 different groups of people left from different events separated by around 1,000 years. By finding this, the idea that the bodies were left after a single catastrophic event is tossed out the window, because that's what they thought. It was just like everyone died all at once.
People have just been dying here for a long time.
Yeah, so in a 5-year-long study involving 28 co-authors from 16 institutions based in India, the US, and Germany, many of the previous assumptions were possibly inaccurate because of all the things they started finding out. So it's not a single event, you know? So.
Okay, well, hear me out. Before you get too far into this, you had a crazy theory for my topic.
Okay.
I had one pop into my head. What if it was a single event, but through the carbon dating, what we've discovered is that time travelers from the future actually went back in time and died there, and that was the actual discrepancy between the dates of the skeletons. They died at the same time, but someone's bones were way older than the time travelers because they had come back and theirs were still fresh. No, that wouldn't make sense. The time travelers would actually be older because they would stay there rotting. Okay, time travel's involved with this somehow. Get back to me, I'll figure it out.
Okay. Oh, Jesus. So 38 skeletons were genetically tested. Among the skeletons were 23 individuals of Asian ancestry, but from different eras during different events between the 7th and 10th centuries AD. They did not come from the same South Asian population, though. So they're from different populations entirely.
That's really weird.
There are also 14 individuals of Mediterranean descent who died 1,000 years later from what can be assumed to be a singular event. There was an individual of East Asian descent in that group of remains as well. It's found that none of them were related to each other and that both groups ate completely different diets. The bodies include that of men and women, many being around 30 to 40, though other sources say they were young adults. There were no children, from what it seems like. And there were no weapons or signs of violence among them.
That's even more terrifying.
Yeah, from what they can tell from the bones, they were healthy when they died. So it's just a very strange thing.
So it's not like they were attacked by a monster and ripped to pieces, because their bones would show that they were assaulted in some way.
So, yes, kind of, sort of. We'll get into it. So, the fact that their bones were healthy throws out the idea that it was an epidemic. Kind of, sort of.
Okay.
I don't know if you can tell if someone's been affected by any and all viruses or disease through their bones. As science people out there, let us know. But an article in the New York Times wrote that there was no sign of bacterial infection. So I don't know if that's what characterizes an epidemic or not. I'm not sure. I have no idea what the definition is or how they know that that's something that's probably not an option anymore. But yeah, I'm not a scientist. We're not scientists. We're not historians. We're nerds. Okay. In one study, out of 5 skeletal samples, 3 of them showed signs of unhealed compression fractures. So this led to an idea that maybe they were caused by huge hailstones, like in that story about the ironstones from the legend. Edwin Harney, a doctoral student at Harvard and lead author of this study, stated, quote, "It's hard to believe that each individual died in exactly the same way," end quote. But it looks like many of them did.
So monster confirmed now.
I don't know if it's monster confirmed, but it could be just this huge storm up in the mountains happened and murdered them all at once, you know?
Or the Yeti.
Because there's no houses up there to protect you. There's nothing to cover your head. If a hailstorm happens, you're getting your skull crushed in. This happened in... So things happened in the 7th century and the 10th century, and then 1,000 years later. So back then, they didn't have all the stuff we have now, right? There's not a bunch of fancy things to protect you. You're not going to hide in a nice fancy house or something from the hail. And so I can totally see how people think like a huge hailstorm happened, crushed all their skulls in, you know? But who knows? Maybe it is a big old monster that ripped them all to pieces. That came out of that little lake.
You never know. I was thinking cave in the mountains more than the little lake.
Science can tell us where they came from, but why or how they ended up in the Himalayan mountains, dying in a group like that, is kind of up for speculation, and no one really knows. It's a mystery. Maybe a storm did trap them there during a pilgrimage or something. Some scholars actually place this Mediterranean group there during one of those Rajat pilgrimages. They're surprised by the existence of people other than South Asian ancestry there, though. They didn't expect them to be there in the Indian Himalayas, which is not very near where...
Right, it's really far away.
Yeah, so they're like, this is weird. According to William Sachs, head of Heidelberg University's anthropology department, and author of a book on that pilgrimage, their presence there, quote-unquote, wouldn't make any sense. So they're just like, why are these people from the Mediterranean up there? It could also be that those with seemingly Mediterranean ancestry at the time may have lived in the surrounding area, as they could be related to those that eventually migrated to the Mediterranean, because the world changes
right
in all those years, you know? So it's not really known for sure if they're the exact same ones from that area that traveled up, or if it was just they lived there. Because when they did a dietary reconstruction of this group, their diet consisted of that similar to those in that South Asian region. So it's like their diets are different, but somewhat similar, and their DNA is different. So maybe they just migrated there. It's so much science, so much history. The world's always changing. People migrate all over the world. So it's really
hard to deconstruct a mystery that's like
ancient.
1,500 years old.
Mystery.
Yeah.
Now I'm sure you're all sick of all this history and science mumbo jumbo, but I find it absolutely fascinating. And one theory about this Mediterranean group is that they may have been from an isolated population of Central Asians that descended from Alexander the Great and his armies.
I was going to say,
which
there
is
has
why
been,
they were different.
Yeah, there has been wars where it would have led people to be there and
right.
possibly stay there.
But that's a much more far-fetched theory, as there aren't a number of necessary genetic markers to completely assume so. But I think it's cool that they're really trying to put things together and figure out how it's possible.
What if it was a group of people from the Mediterranean who just decided they heard about this pilgrimage and I want to do that. And let's get some people together and do that.
It could be. Who knows? Sachs has made 3 trips to the lake, the latest being in 2004 as part of a Nat Geo TV show, which is National Geographic. He says it's not something that gets much attention from pilgrims anymore. They go on this pilgrimage, they stop, show a little respect, and then they quickly move on because they know they have so much longer to get to their destination. According to him, quote, "It's kind of a dark and dirty place where you sort of nod your head and move on," end quote. So it's like such a strange place. People don't necessarily spend a lot of time there. Would you want to spend a lot of time there where there's just a bunch of bodies? What if you're the next group of people that's stuck there?
Yeah, in a tiny little lake. I'd just be like, oh, moving on. So this whole thing is still something that's safe to call unsolved, which is a shout out to the Ghoul Boys. I freaking love them. I love Ryan Bergara. I have
He's
no
my
idea
favorite.
who these people are.
Oh my god, you gotta watch BuzzFeed Unsolved. They're so good. Okay. Science will keep working and coming up with more theories, I'm sure. Veena Mushrif Tripathi, a bioarchaeologist at Deccan College in India, hopes to further investigate the Roopkund, and as the waters themselves have not been well studied. So people haven't actually studied the lake and everything in the lake. They hope that soft tissue and artifacts may be preserved in the cold water, undisturbed compared to the easier accessible bones around the area. Hopefully we'll all find out one day in the future.
I think it's weird to be like, man, I really hope to find some soft tissue in there. Really hoping for some chunks of flesh that would super help us. I
think it'd be really neat to find something that would help with figuring out who these people are and why they were there. I don't know how much more finding flesh with more DNA could help, but who knows? I'm not a scientist. I don't know how that shit works. But
it's definitely a bizarre mystery from a very long time ago. And it's just so weird that there's been
a lot of bodies.
To have bones that date back to what'd you say, the 7th century, the 11th century?
So beginning in the 7th century. So that's what, the 600s?
600s.
Yeah. So that's a long ass time ago.
But to have 3 different time periods represented is so weird that it's this specific site has bizarre ways that these people all died. And it's all happened across over, 1,500 years or so.
That's crazy.
1,400 years
Which is why it's so hard to pinpoint where all these people came from. Because
and why they were there.
Everybody's so different now. People live in different parts of the world than they did freaking millennia ago.
Right.
It's crazy.
It is. So that one's really interesting. I hope we get some more information on it in the future. Who knows? Maybe in 2 weeks we see an article. It's mystery solved. Or
I
new
pulled
theory.
from articles that were February 20th, 2021.
Oh, so super recent then.
Yeah.
Nice. So who knows? Maybe we'll find something where it's a new cryptid has been discovered and confirmed as being real, or the Yeti's been discovered and he's really good at throwing rocks in the slingshot. And we'll be like, knew it, fucking called it. So who knows? But good shit. Good stuff.
Yeah, thanks.
So yeah, that's going to be everything for episode 171. Again, if you would like to watch us record Storytime or Pasta Time live, Wednesdays, 6:30 p.m. Pacific time is when we do that at twitch.tv/Scaryish podcast or youtube.com/Scaryish. And we will be doing a live topic episode Sunday the 28th at 1 p.m. Pacific time. Please stop by and say hi. It'll be a fun time. I hope. It could be a fucking mess. Who knows? But at least it'll be entertaining for you, possibly frustrating for us, which makes for the best content, apparently.
I hope it's fun, and I hope you guys aren't bored, because really, if you, oh my god, if you guys are here with us on Mondays when we record, it's 2 a.m. right now, and we're just we sit here, I drink some water, we talk about stuff. Sometimes we get really upset at each other, and it's just you guys are going to see it all. You're going to see it all.
Yep. I'm going to purposely, deliberately pick a fight so that we can keep things entertaining. If you have a story you would like to send us, whether it's a story that actually happened to you, a friend, a family member, or a recommendation for a story that you've read online that's a creepypasta or an SCP or any of those other things, feel free to reach out to us. You can email your personal stories or your nonfiction, I should say, to storytime@scaryish.com or hit us up with suggestions on creepypastas at pastatime@scaryish.com. You can go to our website, scaryish.com, and click on Contact Us. You can reach out to us that way, or hit us up on our social medias. Twitter is @ScarishPod, Instagram is @ScarishPodcast, and Facebook is facebook.com/ScarishPodcast. Robin, for folks who would like to donate to us, how can they do so?
You can go to patreon.com/ScarishPodcast. Those are monthly donations. Tiers start at $1, and at $1 you get ad-free episodes. Can't go wrong with ad-free. And there's also physical merch tiers too. Right now we have Nessie keychains going out. I think they're absolutely adorable. And yeah, and if you guys aren't into the monthly tier type thing, you can also do one-time donations at Ko-fi, ko-fi.com/ScarishPodcast. All your donations go to helping us upgrade our studio setup, kind of give us a little more time to do stuff, and make more content for you guys and keep making episodes.
Indeed. So thank you so much for everyone who listens, everyone who supports us in any way, shape, or form. We sincerely appreciate you. And that's everything we have for episode 171. So, Robin, go ahead and sign us out.
Keep on creeping on, and we'll talk to you guys later.
Bye-bye.
That was really long. Like, really long and, like,
And now it's even longer.
Okay.
Bye-bye.